What's going on YouTube? So I got another movie in from Netflix, zip.ca, awesome website. Probably going to plug them in every video I make. Ricky Shore was the first to get me onto zip.ca, awesome little website for renting movies, very convenient, very ingenious. GregArganda, a YouTube user you should subscribe to, also does movie reviews. GregArganda was doing a review on this movie called In Bruges, and he made it sound really good. He piqued my interest into seeing it. In Bruges was released in 2008 by a director named Martin McDowell. It stars Colin Farrell, who I hate. I think he's a fuckface, but Brendan Gleeson's also in it. Brendan Gleeson's from like The Village and Braveheart, Trainspotting. He was in 28 Days Later. It's a movie about, like, it's kind of a comedy slash like crime story about two hitmen who have to go hide out in Bruges. And Bruges is this town or city in Belgium, and it's all with old medieval style architecture, Viking town, Bruges. Anyway, they have to go hide out there because Colin Farrell, who's a hitman, was on his first hit, and he had to go kill a priest, and while he was killing a priest, he shot him with a gun, and the bullets went through him and hit a boy in a church and blew his head off. That part was pretty violent, but it wasn't like graphically violent or anything, pretty standard stuff. The kid's wound to his head was pretty good though, it was pretty well made. So yeah, Brendan Gleeson's character has to go to Bruges with him because he's the guy who, introduced Colin Farrell's character to the mob and stuff and got him to be a hitman, so he's kind of responsible for him. And they're just hiding out in Bruges until the boss figures out what he wants done with them. And that's basically the whole story without any spoilers. Pretty funny movie, had a lot of jokes. The funniest character I thought was the innkeeper, co-owner, played by Thekla Rutan. She was a funny lady playing like the kind of cheeky, pregnant female innkeeper. Someone called her like the innkeeper's wife, and she wrote a little note saying like she's actually the co-owner and stuff. She was a pretty hilarious character. Yeah, it had some funny scenes despite being like a typical kind of Hollywood kind of crime drama black comedy. Like there's this one part where, well, Colin Farrell on the first night in Bruges, of course, there's shooting a movie and there's a girl helping out shooting the movie. And he sneaks by security to go meet her, and the whole reason he got attracted to watching this movie is because he saw, a dwarf was there, a midget, and he starts making fun of the midget, and he's all fascinated with midget. Like, he's playing this total dumbass, asshole, hitman guy who hates being in Bruges. He's being a whiny little bitch about it the whole time. He just shot a kid, and he's just thinking about himself and how much he hates being in Bruges, and he sees a midget, decides to make fun of him, hits on this girl, and the way he, charms her, I guess, is by making fun of this midget and stuff, and he gets her number and stuff. And the first night there, fairly unbelievable. I don't know. These guys didn't seem like hardened killers or anything like that in the movie. But yeah, so he goes on a date with her. They're inside this diner. And the whole time, they're supposed to be sitting in the hotel waiting for a phone call. Anyway, he starts to fight with these couple that's sitting next to them, punches out the guy, and then he punches out the woman, too, because the woman came at her with a wine bottle, and he just decks her in the face and punches out a girl. It's kind of funny. But yeah, and eventually she's one of those girls who just, suckers tourists in and then has her boyfriend come in and mug them. He shoots a blank into the mugger's face at some point because he takes his gun, but it's only loaded with blanks, blinds him. So they both go to the hospital, and he steals this cocaine and acid and ecstasy, and then he winds up hooking up with his friend and the midget guy, and the midget guy played by Jordan Prentice. He's with a prostitute, and they go back to his house, and they're doing all these drugs. It's a pretty funny scene. The midget turns out to be racist and said there's going to be a race war between the whites and the blacks, and they're trying to figure out, what about all the other races? Where are they going to send, Vietnamese and stuff? Pretty funny scene. But yeah, it was an alright movie, despite Colin Farrell being in it. It was kind of predictable, but it had, decent jokes. It has a fair amount of laughs. It was pretty well written, I guess. I don't know if it was actually shot in Belgium or in Bruges. Probably was. But yeah, it had some pretty graphic violence. Like this part coming up here where he's going to kill himself, this character, the Brendan Gleeson character. He's going to jump out of the bell tower, and that's pretty, when he lands on the ground, it's pretty cool. Pretty good use of blood splatter there. he gonna jump soon? Here he goes. Oh, he's gonna drop some money first. Wait for it. There he goes. First I thought he was gonna go up in the tower and shoot Ralph Fiennes' character, because Ralph Fiennes came to Bruges to kill everybody, because he eventually wanted this character to go kill him. Splat. But turns out Colin Farrell was going through this suicidal moment and he felt bad for him. Instead of just letting him kill himself or killing him for him, he sends him away on a train. Police arrest him on the train for punching at the Canadian couple and brings him back to Bruges. And if you want me to spoil the entire movie and how it ends, I'll do it right now. I'll just give you a little time to turn it off. Okay, so in the end, everyone dies. So the more experienced hitman guy just jumped off the building and killed himself. He lands and lives somehow, but he dies eventually. Ralph Fiennes' character winds up chasing Colin Farrell's character down, shoots him, and then while he's shooting him, the bullets go through him and hit the midget character who was dressed up like as a little boy. So it's kind of symbolic of what happened earlier in the movie when Colin Farrell killed a boy. And earlier, Ralph Fiennes' character said if he ever did that, he'd kill himself on the spot, and that's pretty much what happens. You're not sure if Colin Farrell's character actually dies, though, even though he's shot several times. They load him up into an ambulance, and he's just talking to himself in an inner monologue about how he doesn't want to die because he imagined hell is like Bruges, and he hates being in Bruges. And it's all taking place around Christmas time. But yeah, it was an alright movie. It was a good recommendation. Killed some time. I didn't hate this movie at all. It was, it's what you expect. It's called In Bruges. I didn't have high expectations from it. It had some laughs. I got to some decent comedy out of this movie, but I didn't really care for any of the characters, though. I didn't feel bad when anyone died. So yeah, if you want to see a midget doing drugs and acid and cocaine with prostitutes and a fat Irish guy, you can see this movie. Just Colin Farrell's in it, and it's really too bad.